Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a US election special, and I'm going to do a reaction video to Tim Walz, the presumptive vice president, the nominee for the Democrats for vice president for the November elections. And I have listened to this already, so I've listened to it once through, and I was suitably impressed to go, I think there's enough here to pick apart, to show what's going on in terms of Democrats strategizing and how we can see that as in stark contrast to the Republican strategizing. So the first thing to note is what I always say, which is how does whatever we listen to, whatever we watch, whatever nugget of news hits us, how does that play with the centre ground, with the independents, with the swing voters, with the different demographics, women, men, young people, old people, middle class, working class, rich people, white people, people of colour, Christians, Muslims, atheists, whatever demographic you can imagine, how does a given speech in this case play? What are the check boxes that are being ticked? How is one side doing compared to the other? Now, I've long been saying that the Republican, and if we look at the RNC, the Republican National Committee convention, I think a lot of the rhetoric was divisive. I think they've forgotten how to strategically campaign. I think that they are playing to their base and to their base only, and they're not thinking beyond the base. So as I keep saying, the kind of MAGA Republicanism, it has a ceiling, a hard ceiling at sort of, some people give different percentages, but let's say 46%. You can't win the election at just 46%. So in order for Trump and Vance to win, they need to go outside of that demographic to try and pull in those voters from the Democrats, from the independents and the swing voters. They need to get some of these people from all these different segments of society and bring them over, people that might not normally vote Republican, but they need them to vote Republican for this election. They need to even if it's borrowing those votes, you can go back to Democrats or you can go back to an independent in 4 years' time. But right now, we need to get over the line. And to get over the line, we need more than the people we are preaching to. We need a broader church. And I don't think the Republicans have remotely done a good job of doing that. They're appealing to their base, and they continue to appeal to their base. Trump talks about going, insulting. I've been told, in his latest speech, he was like, should I continue to insult or shall I, talk about policy? He literally said, shall I continue to insult or talk about policy? As if you've got this false dichotomy and as if talking about policy is a bad thing. And the crowd shouted more when he says insult. So he said, I'm going to insult. I'm going to fire my strategists. Your strategists are there telling you should be talking about policy because that's what's going to attract people over here. You don't need to insult anymore because you've got the people over here. They're in your pocket. You need to get extra people, and just continuing to insult and have these bizarre rambling speeches, you are not going to expand your base. Expanding the base is the name of the game. So the question is, so that's my intro into this. The question is, for each moment of this speech, is Tim Walz looking at expanding the base? So let's look at the sorts of techniques he uses or the content of what his speech is. And what's very important to note is that Tim Walz is not a teleprompter speaker. He's never had the experience of doing teleprompter speakers. If you listen to, was it Adam Kinzinger or it might be someone else? No, it wasn't. It was another Democratic lawmaker, I think, was talking about his experience of Tim Walz in Congress. And he used to put his head down. He used to be the last person to leave. He wasn't someone that would grandstand. He wouldn't go out to speak to the cameras. He was just someone that worked hard and got the job done. So he's not used to these big moments. And in fact, he admits in his speech that, he's not used to speaking in front of crowds like this, which is all the more impressive because he does such a good job of it. Okay, let's dip into it.
Please welcome the Democratic nominee for Vice President, Governor Tim Walz.
And I will be interrupting this. If you want a to watch this speech as a whole without me interrupting it, go and watch the speech as a whole. I am going to interrupt this because that's the entire reason for me doing this video, is to go, that's why he said that. That's why he said that. I'm just going to mute that because I'll probably get copyright infringement. But, you know, first of all, you've got huge, stacked, packed crowd.
Thank you.
Right, just to let you know, that's his wife, his son, and his daughter. And they are very emotional, or certainly the son.
Thank you.
And the daughter.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, first of all, the Vice President.
I'm going to interrupt. He's not even started. Showing that inset of his family tells you he's a family man. So the first thing you get, he hasn't even started speaking. First thing you get is, one, he's a family man. Two, his family love him. So he is an adored person by the people closest to him. And there is love and warmth there. So before we started, we get a sense of Tim Walz is a loved and adored man by those closest to him.
President Harris, thanks for putting your trust in me and for inviting me to be part of this incredible campaign.
Second thing to note, she invited him. She's the one that makes the decisions. She's the one that's in charge. I'm here because of her. He's not trying to take the limelight from Kamala Harris. And this is one of the reasons why Josh Shapiro was supposedly not chosen, because Josh Shapiro was apparently kind of like, how do we rule together? How, you know, what can I bring to this in terms of how can my characteristics and pull of and knowledge of policy and whatever, and pull of certain demographics, how can that help us rule together as like a partnership where we're co-equals? And she didn't want that. Like, I'm the president, you need to be the VP, so you need to be doing everything you can to support me from kind of below. That's not some kind of authoritarian thing. That is like, I am the president. You know, this is just how it goes. And Tim Walz was very much, apparently in the interview, was very much, you know, what can I do to serve you? And you'll notice that service is a big thing that goes through his speech. Also, Pete Buttigieg has mentioned a lot about service, because the idea is that Trump doesn't know what service is. He keeps insulting people who have received the Medal of Honor by implication, and, you know, veterans and so on and so forth. That, you know, he doesn't get service. He is the narcissist who doesn't serve anyone. He is the kind of wants to be the authoritarian, almost dictator of the US, so that everyone is bowing down to him, and that's what makes America great again. Now, I don't want to go down any kind of religious route here, because I'm not religious at all. But in the Bible, you get this idea of Jesus as the servant king. Now, I'm not a believer, but the servant king idea is super important, because it's like, I'm here to serve you as your leader, but my leadership serves you. And that's a completely different style of leadership between the Democrats and the Republicans. Donald Trump doesn't have that. Indeed, if you want to go down the religious route, he was asked recently, you know, about forgiveness in the past, I think it might have been, actually, and he was like, I have no need for forgiveness, like, as if I'm this like perfect entity that is going to rule you. And these guys are talking about serving you, not ruling you. And there was even talk, was it one of them, it might have been Gavin Newsom, or someone was talking about, you know, we're going to make mistakes, but we're here for you, and so on and so forth. It's just a completely different way of doing things.
And a thank you to President Joe Biden for 4 years of strong, historic leadership. It's the honor of my life to accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States.
So paying respect to Joe Biden, because it's because of Joe Biden that they've been given this platform. They've had the torch, the baton has been passed.
We're all here tonight for one beautiful, simple reason. We love this country.
So what you are going to see, this is a super important point. You are going to see a Democrat form of patriotism. And I just heard Tim Miller talk about this on MSNBC, where he was saying that you've now got permission in the Democratic convention here to shout USA, USA. That's a very kind of nationalistic, patriotic, jingoistic thing that was more associated with the Republican Party. Now you've got this permission structure for a form of national pride and patriotism to shine through for the Democrats, and he will play on that. So bear that in mind.
So thank you to all of you here in Chicago and all of you watching at home tonight. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your determination. And most of all, thank you for bringing the joy to this fight.
Massive component of Tim Walz's campaigning. He's talked about joy, joy, joy a lot. Like, he's talked about joy more than he has weirdness of the Republicans. And this is part of the Democratic agenda, which is we need this to be positive. Where the Republicans are insulting everyone, denigrating and dividing, we need to be uniting and having a sense of joy. And joy is more infectious, is the hope, than a kind of fear-based campaign system where it's like, immigrants are terrible, they're coming to steal your jobs, they're coming to do crime, and Democrats are coming to steal your guns, and Democrats are coming to do this, all this kind of fear. There'll be elements of that with the Democratic agenda, but it's like, thanks for bringing the joy, we want this to be really uplifting. The whole convention is a step away from what the RNC was. So at the convention, what you're doing is you're getting delegates from each state to vote for you, assuming that you've won the primaries, so that you become the official nominee for the party. Okay. Now, it was a bit weird with the Democrats this year because the primaries happened. Joe Biden got all the votes from the delegates, but then he stepped aside and Kamala Harris took over. But she then got she got news that all the enough delegates had voted for her. And it went to the convention, and you have what's called a roll call that goes around where all of the states then say this many delegates vote for Kamala Harris or whoever it might be, or Donald Trump for the RNC. And what the Democrats did is, for the first time ever, they accompanied it with music, and they had DJ Cassidy, and it was absolutely brilliant. DJ Cassidy having a song for each state that was relevant to that state, either a band from that state or music that played into the ethos of that state. Very well thought out, and it became a bit of a party atmosphere. And the whole convention has been a party sense of, you've had the sense of party and joy. And so the whole thing is this positive explosion of happiness and a united vision about a positive future for the US. And you compare that, and you can do a roll call comparison. There's a video, it's a roll call comparison, and it's really somber at the RNC, and it's like, Georgia, how many delegates? And you have 42 delegates or whatever it is for Donald Trump. Thank you very much. And Wisconsin and whatever. And it's like, meh, okay. And the Democrats had Lil Jon for Georgia coming down and rapping them into their intro. And it was an explosion of just joy and positivity. And it was just very cool as well. Now, if you're thinking about trying to attract those people in the middle, swing voters, young people who are just switching on the TV and they've got that as a roll call, who are you going to be more attracted by. So this convention, the whole feeling of the Democratic convention is different and has been very, very tightly worked on. And listening to what DJ Cassidy was saying in an interview of him about how the producers, about, you know, it's just really tightly done. Now it has overrun, and indeed Biden's speech was an hour, and it overrun on the first night, and it came after prime time because of it had been overrunning. So this is an issue that Democrats have had, that some of the speeches have overrun. Tim Walz came after prime time as well because other speeches before him have overrun. But the key here is his was only 17 minutes, and he packed into 17 minutes, you know, more than Biden did effectively into an hour.
Now, I grew up
Coach.
in Butte, Nebraska, a town of 400 people.
Again, everything's important. Who's he talking to? Rural people. He's going to talk about neighborhoods, about community, about uniting, even though you've got differences, uniting. But this is, so the Republicans are big on rural and less good on urban metropolitan areas. The Democrats the opposite. So here you've got a Democratic vice president nominee coming from a rural background, being a big shooter with guns, and saying that this is who I am. So I'm giving you a permission structure as a rural citizen to be a Democrat. Super important. Everything is on point.
I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale.
Boom. Good call there. We are not elites here, right? I'm a middle class. I was a rural guy brought up on a farm. Kamala Harris worked at McDonald's when she was young. It's not JD Vance, and it's not Trump who was born with holding a golden egg, right? This is a totally different approach. We are middle Americans from middle America, and we are not elites, and we are not. I'm not. No one in my class went to Harvard, and we are here for you. We are not here for the elites. A, we're not elites, and B, we're not for the elites.
But I'll tell you what, growing up in a small town like that,
Small town.
you learn how to take care of each other.
Community. Unity.
That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do.
Religiosity.
They may not love like you do, but they're your neighbors.
When he talks about they might not love like you do, that's a euphemism for inclusion for sexual orientation. Right? So he's saying it doesn't matter your religion, your sexual orientation, or you think like you, or your ideology. Right? You stick together as a community. He is taking that idea of small town Nebraska of 400 and whatever people, where you've got all those people living there. You've got gay people, straight people, religious people, non-religious people, or different religious people, Democrats, Republicans, independents. We live together and we looked after each other. Now you expand that to the US. We have all of those, but times quite a lot. We need to stick together and look after each other. And we as a Democratic Party are going to do that. We will look after you whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, whether you are religious or not, or a different religion, whether you are gay or straight or whatever. So this is all about positivity and unity.
And you look out for them, and they look out for you. Everybody belongs, and everybody has a responsibility to contribute.
He's talking about
For
America.
me, it was serving in the Army National Guard.
Service.
I joined up 2 days after my 17th birthday, and I proudly wore our nation's uniform for 24 years.
What's he saying? Trump, what did you do? You avoided the draft with your bone spurs. I served, they didn't serve. Well, JD Vance did, but this is more to do with, I think, Trump, and also just talking in general about service. There's a big theme running through, and Pete Buttigieg's speech as well was about service. Servant King.
My dad a Korean War era Army veteran, died of lung cancer a couple years later. He left behind a mountain of medical debt. Thank God for Social Security survivor benefits. And
Talking about the welfare state.
thank God for the GI Bill that allowed my dad and me to go to college. And millions
Provision for veterans to be able to go to college through government provision.
of other Americans. Eventually, like the rest of my family, I fell in love with teaching. Three out of 4 of us married teachers. I wound up teaching social studies and coaching football at Mankato West High School. Go Scarlets!
So, served in the army, moved on to serving as a teacher, moved on to serving as a coach. But it wasn't about me. It was about serving the country in the armed forces. It's about serving the pupils as a teacher. And it's about serving the players as a coach. And go Scarlets. Not go me, go Scarlets. Go USA. Go something greater than me, something bigger than me. So this is a contrast to the narcissism of Trump, as they would see it, to the giving out to something greater. Yeah, it's not that. It's not that pyramid to something at the top. It's that outflowing of the top that feeds back down into the bottom.
We ran a 44 defense. We played through to the whistle on every single play, and we even won a state championship.
So, who's he talking to? People love sport in America. A lot of people love sport, as they do everywhere. And there's going to be a lot of sports fans that are Republicans as well. A lot of, go to the game on whatever day you guys have your games. Take your beers and whatever and eat out the back of the truck, or go and enjoy your game, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not trying to generalize here, but there's probably an awful lot of people who are Republican, who that's their way of life. And by speaking the language of sports and speaking the language of sort of coaching and football, American football there, he is talking to them as much as anything else there. And then saying, and we won. So this vision that I have for America is a winning vision.
Never close the yearbook, people. But it was those players and my students who inspired me to run for Congress. They saw in me what I had hoped to instill in them, a commitment to the common good, an understanding
something bigger,
that we're all in this together.
Unity.
And the belief that a single person can make a real difference for their neighbors.
Community.
So there I was,
working together.
A 40-something high school teacher with little kids, zero political experience, and no money, running in a deep red district. But you know what? Never underestimate a public school teacher. Never.
And he's then obviously talking to public service, to public school teachers, getting the teachers on board. Everyone loves a teacher type thing. They're kind of universally popular. Sort of depends. Yeah. But he is like ticking all these boxes. But also think about his cadence here. Think about the way he's delivering his speech as someone who's not used to doing this kind of thing. He's absolutely on point. The other thing he does is he doesn't dwell on the applause and the cheering. He speaks through it, which is really important for not delaying your speech. And for just being bosh, 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 bosh. You've got to talk through it to get it done. Some others haven't done that, and their speech has gone on too long. AOC did a really good speech on the first day. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, really firebrand, excellent speech. Like, despite what you think about her politics, and her ideology, the actual construction of that speech and the way she delivered it was really authentic. And this is what Tim Walz is here as well. He's authentic. And part of why people think he's becoming so popular is because people can see through inauthenticity. So when you look at JD Vance as this guy who's like slagged off Trump and then come back and say, no, Trump's awesome, people can see through that. Like, we know that you're a slippery eel, that you'll say whatever you like to get into power. Tim Walz is completely different here. He's a public school teacher, coach, National Guardsman. We know who he is. He's an everyman. He's given us his backstory, and we believe it because the way he's delivering this speech is completely authentic. This is almost not a constructed written speech for him, except it is. But you can feel like a sense of genuineness here.
In Congress for 12 years, and I learned an awful lot. I learned how to work across the aisle on issues like growing the rural economies and taking care of veterans.
Okay, willing to work as a bipartisan, shake hands with my Republican colleagues across the aisle and get stuff done. I've done that. I've got a record of doing that. And actually, if you look at his record, he's been trying to be painted as this firebrand, as this kind of liberal, real liberal to the left. If you look at his voting record, he actually sits to the right traditionally of the Democratic Party. So he's like, I will reach across the aisle. But he then talks about rural again, and appealing to the rural population.
On issues like growing the rural economies and taking care of veterans.
And veterans.
And I learned how to compromise without compromising my values.
So who's he appealing to? Not the Democrats here. He's appealing to Republicans, Republican veterans, and Republican rurals. And just Republicans in general. I'm willing to do bipartisan work.
Then I came back to serve as governor. And we got right to work.
Serve.
Making a difference in our neighbors' lives.
Making a difference, succeeding.
For the middle class.
Cutting taxes. Big Republican thing here. What did we do? What did I do when I was in Congress? We worked to cut taxes for the middle class.
We passed paid family and medical leave. We invested in fighting crime and affordable housing.
Crime, affordable housing.
We cut the cost of prescription drugs and helped people escape the kind of medical debt that nearly sank my family.
Really, really important there. So it's important to also note that Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which was so controversial at the time and Obama had to fight so hard to get through, is actually now very popular. To the point where, and this is it, and Obama mentioned this in his speech, I think. Obama's speech was absolutely phenomenal. Michelle Obama's speech was an absolute winner. But Obama talked about how, have you noticed that no one calls it Obamacare anymore? Because they tried to call it Obamacare because they're trying to associate Obama being negative. As a Republican, you say Obama negative, Affordable Care Act negative. We put those things two together. We can paint this as a real disaster and being really negative, but it's been popular and people are up for it, and so now you're not hearing it called Obamacare anymore. It's the ACA, Affordable Care Act, Medicare, blah blah blah.
And we made sure that every kid in our state gets breakfast and lunch every day.
Very popular. You'd be a complete bastard to sit there and go, no, screw that, kids shouldn't get food. And of course, what it does is I can tell you this from my experience. My partner is a business manager in a school. I was a former teacher, and I can give you the evidence on, like, the Liberal Democrats in the UK were big on this, free school meals for kids. So certain kids will come into school in the morning not having eaten, and they are usually ones on a poverty line, and they therefore are unable to concentrate as much and do less well at school, and they are not given the opportunity that opportunity to succeed. You then give, no matter what demographic you're from, you give people the opportunity to eat those important meals, breakfast, at lunch, so that you can do well at school. Then you're giving an equality of opportunity to people, and it's not a quality of outcome; it's a quality of opportunity. And if you're stopping people from being able to feed themselves so their brains work, because they're poor, then you are saying poor people do not get the opportunity to succeed and to get grades at school, and it becomes school education becomes elitist.
So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours.
Boom! What a line! Great line. Absolutely great line. Republicans are trying to get onto culture wars, ban certain books because they have X, Y, and Z. You can ban books. We're going to ban hunger for our kids. So we're the ones making meaningful difference here, is what he's saying. And just that we're starting to get onto some kind of policy difference here, which I think is really important and positive.
We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make.
So remember, when he is talking about policy, he's painting the Democrat policies as freedom and as giving something. Like we're not banning books, we're banning hunger. We're not saying you can't do this, we're saying you can do this. You can eat so you can achieve, rather than you can't read this book. So it's that contrast of negativity of the Republicans to the positivity of the Democrats. So even when it comes to something like abortion or reproductive rights, because it's not just about abortion. This is why some people say, oh, they should call it abortion. What it really is, why do you call it reproductive rights? It's because it goes to contraception, it goes to IVF. There are all sorts of things that come under the umbrella that the Republicans are trying to attack. But he's painting this as freedom as opposed to taking something away, which you could read from just concentrating on abortion. It's about giving children through IVF. It's about your freedom to choose and your freedom to have bodily autonomy. So it's about the way that you frame these things. So look, we are the positive ones, they're the negative ones. You might disagree with that, but that's what he's trying to do.
And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
This isn't just a throwaway line. Yay. This is very well thought out. Why is it thought out? Because this is playing on libertarianism. This is playing on Republican small government ideology. The Republicans are about reducing tax. He's already talked about reducing tax for the middle class. Republicans are about reducing tax so you have a smaller government. Government doesn't interfere in your life. It's always about the government interfering too much. That's what the Democrats want. They want a big government. He's saying, no, we don't. We want a small government. This actually goes to talk about the complete contradiction that both sides have in terms of what the government does. So on the right, republicanism, or on the right in general, no matter what country you're in, they want small government. They don't want them to interfere in your lives. But what they really mean is we don't want the small government to interfere in taxes and corporation regulation, but they're fine with them interfering in what you do with your body and who you love behind closed doors. So there's a contradiction there. We want no government regulation in corporate affairs, but we do want government regulation in social moral affairs. Where the left go, we want a big government for regulation of the economy and the environment, etc., etc. We want a big government to do that. But when it comes to who you love and when it comes to bodily autonomy, we don't want the government involved. So there is that contradiction between both sides. It's existed for a long time, this. But talking in terms of that like kind of libertarian approach to government is going to find purchase with Republicans particularly. So this is framing bodily autonomy in a way that would appeal to Republicans. This is super important. So I could talk for 20 minutes on that one line alone. It's super important.
Even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. And that includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I. If you've never experienced the hell that is infertility, I guarantee you know somebody who has. And I can remember praying each night for
religion.
a phone call. The pit.
So he there's a reason he said, I remember praying. I mean, I assume he did. I assume he is religious, right? But even if he wasn't religious, right, that line would still be in there. Because he's appealing, he's saying, I'm a man of God, and I'm appealing to Republicans who are particularly so. And I was praying for success in IVF, and I'm telling you from my own personal experience that IVF is super important if you want to grow families, which is what you're talking about, Republicans. You're talking about being pro-family, pro-child. Well, IVF is a really successful way of being pro-child.
Your stomach when the phone had rang, and the absolute agony when we heard the treatments hadn't worked. It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
So not only is that a big statement on IVF, which is a deeply unpopular approach for the Republicans, politically, publicly speaking, he's also saying, I'm a family man, and his family are showing him love and respect there. So this is all very wholesome, particularly so.
I'm letting you in on how we started a family, because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations, free to pollute your air and water. And banks, free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make... So
totally upturning this idea of freedom in a way that the Republicans talk about it often. And remember, there is that tension there between kind of corporate and personal freedoms. But they are trying to show the freedoms here that are freedoms that will benefit you yourselves. And he's talking about, again, when it's freedom to love who you want to love or that kind of thing, that's about sexual orientation, but not using language that would be seen as that. This is very euphemistic here. It's a euphemism that's very neutral, but actually people who know what he's talking about know what he's talking about. So if you are gay, you will listen to that and go, right, I get that. But if you are homophobic on the Republican side, it might just slip you by. You might just hear that and not really realize that he's talking about sexual orientation.
That you love.
So there you go.
To make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall.
So this is a super important part of the speech, because he's going to appeal to Republicans, but predominantly swing voters and independents. But he's going to do it in a way that doesn't alienate and divide. He's not like, I am a Democrat that doesn't own a gun and I think we should just ban all guns. He's going to say, I'm a hunter. I'm someone who, and this is true, that he won the shooting competition between Republicans and Democrats in Congress like loads of times. He's like a really good shooter. But I'm going to frame protecting our children at school and gun control in a way that isn't so divisive for people I want to attract over. Remember, it's all about attracting people over. He's giving a permission structure for people who like guns and who are Second Amendment advocates. So the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. I'm giving a permission structure for you guys to come over and support the Democrats and vote for Harris Walz, because I like guns, you like guns, but we don't want kids to die.
Look, I know guns. I'm a veteran. I'm a hunter. And I was a better shot than most Republicans in Congress, and I got the trophies to prove it. But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe.
What a good line. I believe in the Second Amendment, but my first responsibility is to keep our kids safe. It's not either or. It's both and. It's hugely important and really well framed. Really well framed.
That's what this is all about. The responsibility we have to our kids, to each other, and to the future
Serving.
we're building together, in which everyone is free to build the kind of life they want. But not everyone has that same sense of responsibility. Some folks just don't understand what it takes to be a good neighbor. Take Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Their Project 2025 will make things much, much harder for people who are just trying to live their lives. They spent a lot of time pretending they know nothing about this. But look, I coached high school football long enough to know, and trust me on this, when somebody takes the time to draw up a playbook, they're going to use it.
Again, using that sporting analogy, using that coaching analogy, but it's true. Like, they've spent, that's a 900-page document. That's not just been written for shits and giggles. That has been put out there, and they are going to use it, even if they are denying that they know anything about it. Of course, it was written by the entire Trump team.
And we know if these guys get back in the White House, they'll start jacking up the costs on them.
Can I just say, his kid is from that generation where instead of this is like when you go to poetry, what are they called, poetry slams or whatever, where instead of clapping you click your fingers.
And we know if these guys get back in the White House, they'll start jacking up the costs on the middle class, they'll repeal the Affordable Care Act, they'll gut Social Security and Medicare, and they will ban abortion across this country, with or without Congress.
Interesting that he chose abortion there, but yeah, it is about banning that one thing as opposed to talk about IVF or contraception, which are equally part of the issue.
Here's the thing. It's an agenda nobody asked for. It's an agenda that serves nobody except the richest and the most extreme amongst us.
Talking about serving, who are they serving? The rich and the most extreme. Serving. I'm serving you. We're serving each other. We are together as neighbours in this country of the United States. We are a Nebraskan village writ large. We serve each other. I am serving you. Who are they serving? They are serving the rich and the extreme.
And it's an agenda that does nothing for our neighbors in need. Is it weird? Absolutely.
Playing on it. Remember, he's the one that coined the weird phrase. Use.
But it's also wrong. And it's dangerous. It's not just me saying so. It's Trump's own people. They were with him for 4 years. They're warning us that the next 4 years will be much, much worse. You know, when I was teaching every year, we'd elect a student body president. And you know what? Those teenagers could teach Donald Trump a hell of a lot about what a leader is. Leaders don't spend all day insulting people and blaming others. Leaders do the work. So I don't know about you, I'm ready to turn the page on these guys. So go ahead, say it with me. We're not going back. We've got something better to offer the American people. It starts with our candidate, Kamala Harris.
So he's gone from that whole bit is the negative bit on the Trump campaign, scaring you a little bit about what they're about, which is, you know, it's not just making stuff. That is literally what they're about. They've got a book on it. But the way that Walz and Harris, there's been some analysis on this, are able to bat off Trumpism and the sorts of insults that Trump has, rather than dwelling on them and spending an awful lot of time dealing with his rhetoric and being totally offended, and which then gives oxygen to that, which then that cycle that goes on, you get bogged down in dealing with Trump's rhetoric the whole time. They have taken a totally different approach in this campaign to just bat it off. Spend minimal time dealing with the nuts of Trump, and actually to call it weird. It's just weird. Stop being weird. Like, rather than go, oh my God, you said that? Oh, right, I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes dealing with not believing that you said something so horrible and why it's so horrible. Just go, you freaks. Anyway, this is what we're going to do. And that's kind of how that speech has gone, right? Like, you know, here's my story, but also my story by telling you what we're all about as well. Here's what they're about. Bat that away. Kamala Harris, this is what we're about.
From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, as an attorney general, as a United States senator, and then our vice president, she's fought on the side of the American people.
She's with you.
She's taken on the pranksters and fraudsters. She's taken down the transnational gangs, and she stood up to powerful corporate interests. She has never hesitated to reach across that aisle if it meant improving your lives. And she's always done it with energy, with passion, and with joy.
Joy.
Folks.
So there's a lot of leaning into the laugh. You know, she laughs a lot. He actually laughs a deal. Have you ever seen Trump laugh? No. And they take the mickey out of her laugh. And yet, instead of, and this is brilliant, like, it's kind of what I was just talking about. Instead of dwelling on the fact that how can you laugh? How can you take the mickey out? Just say, yeah, she laughs. And it's brilliant. And it's joyous. And you guys don't have that. And we've got that. Yes, she laughs. And I love her laugh. So, more fool you. That's such a better way of dealing with it.
We've got a chance to make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States. But I think we owe it to the American people to tell them exactly what she'd do as president before we ask them for their votes. So this is the part, clip and save it and send it to your undecided relatives so they know.
Not a word is wasted in this speech. Right, that bit is the knowledge. So this is only a 17-minute speech. Yeah, not my analysis. But this whole speech is only 17 minutes. It's short, it's sweet, and it's so efficient. And it's not wasted, and it's on point, and it's quotable. But then he says, this is a bit, he's understanding, or speechwriters are understanding social media. He's saying, right, this is a bit that you guys need to clip and turn into a short, or put on TikTok. Brilliant.
If you're a middle-class family or a family trying to get into the middle class, Kamala Harris is going to cut your taxes. If you're getting squeezed by prescription drug prices, Kamala Harris is going to take on Big Pharma.
But interesting as well, just noticing he's not saying we or the Democrats, he's saying Kamala Harris. So this is, you know, it's pinning it on her. This is a presidential thing, isn't it? I don't know if that has relevance. Right. Oops. Let's get back to that.
If you're hoping to buy a home, Kamala Harris is going to help make it more affordable.
Tick, tick, tick. These are what we're actually going to do.
No matter who you are, Kamala Harris is going to stand up and fight for your freedom to live the life that you want to lead.
So this is where he gets on. It's not substantive, right? He's not going into the policy details here, but he's like, here are some things that the Democrats stand for, that Kamala Harris and I stand for. When you go back to any of Trump's speeches, very little was about policy and substance. When you even look at JD Vance's speech, what possibly annoyed Donald Trump about JD Vance's speech is he only spent 30 seconds talking about Trump, and the rest of it was talking about JD Vance and who he was. What Tim Walz is doing here is talking about him in a way that delivers you information about a vision for America. So his entire biography in that first half of his speech is a vehicle to talk about ideology or to talk about a vision and an agenda. And now he's giving that some policy meat here, although it's vague still. This is not the kind of speech of that. This is rousing up the crowd and also trying to attract people in who might be watching this, turn it on. Oh, this guy's good. I like what he's saying. Yeah, tick, tick, tick. Yep, tick, tick. And then, oh, those are the policies. Yeah, they sound pretty reasonable. Yeah, I like what this guy's selling.
Because that's what we want for ourselves, and it's what we want for our neighbors. You know, you might not know it, but I haven't given a lot of big speeches like this.
Yeah.
But I have given a lot of pep talks. So let me finish with this, team.
So they're all calling him Coach. This is a great thing to have a nickname Coach. Perfect. And they're putting that on those cards that they're holding up, those placards. But the fact he's calling them team, and it's like I do with you, it's that sense of community. Is it like started off as just like, yeah, it's just a word, but actually when you think about it, like it's a sense of community that I am in this with you. Like actually literally like ATP Geopolitics. This isn't about me, this is about us. And that's why I spend a lot of time on the threads talking to you guys, getting your opinion, also showing that I value you because I genuinely do. Like it's not some kind of cynical thing. Like, but we're in this together as a togetherness, which keeps me coming back to doing what I do, and hopefully as well keeps you coming back as well. Now, what he's doing is bringing them in. We're a team together, and that builds on this idea of community, of unity. Small town to whole nation. I'm here for you, you're here for me. We are neighbors. We are here together.
It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field.
Sports analogy.
And boy, do we have the right team. Kamala Harris is tough. Kamala Harris is experienced, and Kamala Harris is ready. Our job.
Really positive words. Tough, experienced, ready. 3. Groups of 3. Listen to Mehdi Hassan. His book is excellent on how to win debates or whatever it is. But, groups of 3 are super important. Tough, experienced, ready. There you go.
Our job for everyone watching
is
to get in the trenches and do the blocking and tackling. 1 inch at a time, 1 yard at a time, 1 phone call at a time, 1 door knock at a time, 1 $5 donation at a time.
So this is a call to arms and using repetition really effectively, as all speeches generally do. We as a team, how do we win this game? Like the ball is in our court. Like it's in our possession. We're I don't know, second and 8, and we're moving forward and we've got momentum. But in order to get that touchdown, we have to knock on every door. We need those $5 donations. We're not talking about big corporate. This is about you. This is every man. This is you and I, people together. Those swing voters, those independents, those Democrats. We need to shore up that base. We need to get out. So you Democrats, he's more talking to the convention here and to paid up Democrats. We need you guys to get out there and get those independents and swing voters and maybe some Republicans. You need to man those telephones. You need to get out and knock on those doors.
Look, we got 76 days.
Text.
That's nothing. There'll be time to sleep when you're dead. We're going to leave it on the field.
Love it. We're going to sleep when we're dead. We can sleep when we're dead. We're going to leave it. Just brilliant.
There'll be time to sleep when you're dead. We're going to leave it on the field.
Leave it on the field. Just everything on the field.
That's how we'll keep moving forward.
You want to come off the field with nothing left in the tank. Nothing left in the tank. You've left it all out on the field. You've done everything you can.
That's how we'll turn the page on Donald Trump. That's how we'll build a country where workers come first. Healthcare and housing are human rights.
Policy, healthcare, housing,
stays the hell out of your bedroom.
freedom. Healthcare, housing, freedom.
That's how we make America a place where no child is left hungry, where no community is left behind, where nobody gets told they don't belong. That's how we're gonna fight. And as the next president of the United States always says, when we fight, when we fight, when we fight, thank you. God bless.
Typical kind of sporting feeling there. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win, which is a Kamala Harris thing that she's been doing on her campaign trail, on her campaign rallies. And he's getting there to feel, you feel part of the excitement. There's an electricity in the crowd there. It's geeing you along. But in order to fight, you guys actually, now it's up to you. You guys need to go out and act on this. And they had the text message, the text number up there for people to donate, and all this comes together to give us a feeling of positivity, unity, not being left behind. The Rust Belt he's talking about there, no community is going to be left behind. Democrats are going to be fighting for you, whether they do or not, we won't know, but or we will eventually. But there's the idea that Democrats left the Rust Belt behind, and that's where Donald Trump came in 2016 and said, right, I'm going to help myself to working class, what would have been Democrat voters and union voters, union workers, and appeal to them through sort of culture wars and promises of a rosy future. And of course, infrastructure bill never happened in Trump's tenure, and it happened in the Biden administration, and that's something to be really proud of. And so there's a bit of a platform for people like Walz to say, look, we have tried to bring you guys along. We've got more factories being built than ever before. There's a guy on Fox News that had to correct Fox News the other day as one of their panelists, saying actually, they've done the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, and there are more factories being built. There's more oil being pumped than ever before. There's more jobs, and blah blah blah. And he's like, look, this is actually the reality of what the Democrats are able to campaign on. And there's a sense that there's a really healthy platform, and if we can just get this positive sense of unity and a vision of what the country can be, then we really should have the rights to win this thing. Anyway, there you go. And that was that. So I think that was a very good speech. Not a word was wasted. And I think when you compare that to, say, JD Vance's speech, where, the raucous crowds like chanting for what was here and afterwards just completely ecstatic is a step away from what we saw at the RNC. And when you saw Trump's rambling speech, I just think that they've really got it together here. The DNC, yeah, it's a bit hit and miss maybe with some of the people lower down the ticket, but before his speech, you had a lot of Republicans talking. So the interesting context to this is you'd had a number of people who were Republicans extolling the virtues of, or giving a permission structure again to vote Democrat. And then you had Tim Walz coming on, and so again, who is this appealing to? It's a permission structure for you guys to come to us. We're allowing you guys to vote Democrat, maybe for the first time ever, because hey, you can like guns and do that. You can like small government and freedoms, and we won't interfere in your house, etc., etc. So that's a kind of context that this speech sits in. And I think it was incredibly effective, and more effective than the Republican counterparts. And when you're in a battle to fight over these people in the middle and fight over the edges of the other party, then I think the Democrats are doing a much better job. Anyway, I know that's a long one, as my ones always are, but I think it was important to go through the minutiae of this to get you to understand that when you come to these big ticket speeches where you have a good speech or a good team of speechwriters writing them, nothing is wasted. And I expect the same for Kamala Harris. I expect the speechwriters to have been working for a long time to make sure that every word finds its purchase there. And I think both Walz and Harris are turning out to be both very good orators. that are authentic speakers on these big stages. And that was a worry actually for both of these people earlier on in this process. And I don't think there's a worry there anymore. I think they are nailing their speeches. The next thing is going to be debates. But at the moment, the momentum is with the Democrats, and you can see why. It's because they are thinking much more strategically and thinking much more in terms of unity and positivity than the Republicans. And I think that is why you are seeing polls react. This is why the viewership for the DNC was, 20% above the RNC? 20 million people were watching. Day two, was it? So, and you should only have really political nerds watching this. And yet the DNC has whipped up all this enthusiasm that you're thinking this is for Trump to lose. And I think he's losing it at the moment. So it would be interesting to see what the reaction is. Anyway, let me know what you think, whether you agree or disagree with, well, am I just talking bollocks? Let me know. And I will interact with you on the threads. Take care, guys. Speak soon.